Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here to First Unitarian Church of Portland. My name is Tom Dishwood, and I'm one of the ministers of this congregation, and I'm so glad to welcome you to this special event. I'm so glad to see so many people turn out on a beautiful summer afternoon. I want to welcome all of you on behalf of First Unitarian Church and on behalf of our Animal Ministries group here at the church, which is part of our social justice ministry here at First Unitarian. Our mission calls us to live in right relationship with all beings, including all living creatures, and that includes the treatment of animals. This is something that this congregation has strived to do throughout its history. The very first minister of this congregation was a man named Thomas Lamb Eliot, for whom this chapel is named. And one day when he saw horses being abused here in Portland in the 1860s and 70s, he decided we needed to do something about that, and he was the principal voice in founding what would become the Humane Society. So this is a legacy that we're proud to continue here today. And so we very much look forward to hearing the stories of our special guests, welcome in particular. And so glad that you're all here as we come to bear witness to what's happening in Ukraine and these good folks and what they're doing to address that. So welcome. Once again, I'm glad you're here, and it's my privilege to introduce Peter Splendow from Northwest VEG. Peter.
And thank you to UU Church for Animal Ministries for putting this on. I wanted to say a few words about Northwest VEG. We had a period during COVID where we really had to step back. Unfortunately, couldn't do a lot of events, but we're really back now. And we have some great activities coming up. Part of the reason we're back is we now have two great coordinators, Jesse Miller and Roz McCallard, who you've probably met out there, and they're doing a good job for us. We have big events coming up, and I hope that you'll be able to participate in some of these, and I hope that some of you actually are interested in joining us and helping planning them. We're going to be doing the Tofurkey Trot again on Thanksgiving Day. We're going to be doing Compassionate Thanksgiving again. We haven't done that in full for a long time. And this coming October is the 20th anniversary of the founding of Northwest VEG, so we're planning a big celebration around that. And finally, we're finally going to be bringing back the Portland Veg Fest again, not until 2024, but that's a huge event. People know we could use a lot of help in terms of helping plan that, and so I really hope some of you will be joining us for that. I have to thank the food vendors who provided food for us here, including the Portland French Bakery, Charlie's Produce, Organically Grown Company, Rubinet, and New Seasons. I really have to thank Tofurkey for all they've done in promoting this tour and bringing, with Seth there, bringing our speakers here, really great. And again, I really hope you'll join us. We certainly could use more members and more volunteers, so see us at the table, sign up for our email list if you're not already on it. And without further ado, let me introduce Seth Tibbott, who is the founder of Tofurkey and the one who has made this whole tour with our speakers happen. So Seth, you want to?
Pleasure to be here. Great to see everybody. Thanks for coming. It's been a great 48 hours, some of the greatest hours of my life, traveling with these people all over. We just went over, I picked them up at the airport on Friday, and then Saturday, we drove over to Bend, over the mountain, and showed them the desert. And we had a great talk last night in Bend, and drove over this morning, stopped at Timberline Lodge. So it's just been fantastic being here, What really attracted me to these two amazing women initially was just, I'm a sucker for selfless work, people that really go out of their way. They're not in this project for money. They're in it for doing something right in the world. And it's amazing to see them work. When the war first broke out, I first got the attention of veganism in Ukraine by there was a young 26-year-old activist by the name of Anastasia Yalenetska, and she took a load of dog food to this animal sanctuary outside Bucha, which was later to become a horror show of atrocities, and dropped off this bags and bags of dog food for these starving dogs. And on her way back with two young other male activists, they were shot and murdered at close range. And so at that point, I was like, boy, this is really a war that's going to have impacts on civilians. And, you know, in the early days of the war, so many people left Ukraine, but what was amazing to me and what stood out to me about Marta and Oksana was that they decided to stay. They had a brief conversation of leaving, but they didn't do that, but they decided to help out and do something amazing in Lviv, and we're going to hear their story. But what really stands out to me about their story, and as you're looking for these slides, you know, I get asked a lot, what's the most important things in starting a business or starting an organization? And I think there's 4 words that I'd like to share, and as you look at these slides, think about. The first thing is they had to convince themselves to believe. You know, they had to believe that they could do this. They had to believe that this was worth spending a lot of their time and energy doing, and they decided that it was, and then they went and did it. The next thing that's really apparent after seeing their slideshow is how much they played with their heart. You know, you look at the tears that they shed and the things that they went through, but they were guided by their heart and what they've done. You know, they see these smiles and the joy that they're bringing to people that are suffering through the war. The third thing is just having a mission, and their mission, you know, is central to what they're doing and providing food to the people of Ukraine. But even more important is the last thing is just persevere, and how they've kept this show running for 1.5 years, you know, amazing. It's so hard to start a business or an organization in the best of times, but doing it in the fog of war when the economy's disrupted, the food system's disrupted, how they did it, I think, is one of the best stories that's happening in the world today. And I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing their story, so let's welcome Marta Ostrovska and Oksana Khomien.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and thank you all guys for coming. Today we are going to tell a story about how is it to be vegan in Ukraine before the war and how is it during the war, which is obviously different.
On this slide you can see some pictures from our basic life before the full-scale war. We are sisters, we are living together, running small family handcraft business together. We live with the cutest cats, and we love traveling a lot and cooking a lot, and our life was really calm and mostly positive. As we are both vegans, since 2017 we were doing some vegan activities, as most likely every vegan does.
And let's take a quick look how veganism looks in Ukraine. This is a survey made by Kyiv Sociological University for Open Cages NGO. And our goal as vegan activists was to make this 2% amount as big as possible. And for this purpose, we were organizing a wide range of different activities, from street actions to some small screenings. And our events was both for vegans and non-vegans, because it was always important for us to build a community and to build connections among the vegans in Ukraine and in general, and our small city in particular.
This picture, as you see, was made only 2 days before the full-scale war started. It's us in the middle and our vegan friends from Lviv. And the place we were meeting at was a cute vegan restaurant in the center of Lviv. This restaurant was called Vegaroom, and it was going out of business in a matter of few days. So we decided to meet there and thank them for good memories and to spend some time together. And as you see from the text on the picture, most of people from this picture, since the war started, they switched to volunteering, and about half of our friends are now serving in the Ukrainian armed forces. And of course, back then we were already talking about war about to start in a matter of few days, but we hoped it's not going to, and we didn't realize that the experience of activism and organizing some events and some places and the connections we made in the vegan community all over the world are going to play a huge role in our life since the war started.
First of all, why do we say a full-scale war, not just a war? Because Russian aggression in Ukraine was started back in 2014, when Crimean Peninsula and part of Donetsk and Luhansk regions were occupied by Russians. But at February 24, our life changed completely because, as Oksana said, we were not ready as individuals, and our country was not ready for that. And the natural reaction of most of people was to run away as soon as possible. And we were thinking about this with Oksana as well, but we had 30 minutes to decide that we are staying because we were thinking about all the people who may need our help, lonely people, homeless people, and animals. And this is why we decided to stay and to be as helpful as we can.
One of the pictures from the chaos of a few days of war. So we live in Lviv, and it's one of the safest cities in Ukraine now. Our first week of full-scale war was really chaotic as well, because we didn't know what to do and our work stopped. The post was not working, bank was not working, and we were just waking up in the morning and walking through the city and looking for some opportunities to volunteer. We were volunteering at the production of dry food for military and making masking nets for military as well. We tried to do some online activities, like connecting information that might be useful for refugees. And as you can see on this slide, Lviv is one of the most western regions of Ukraine. So there's been really a lot of volunteer work to do, because most of the people from all over Ukraine who decided to relocate to other regions of Ukraine, they chose Lviv as the most safe and the closest to Europe. And as well, people who decided to move abroad, they had to go through this city. So one day, February 28, we decided that maybe we can make some work at the railway station, because a lot of people were arriving every half an hour, every 12 minutes. There was a lot of evacuation buses and trains as well. And there were thousands of people, and we decided to go to the night shift to maybe serve some food and tea to the refugees, and to help people to find some contacts where they can host, who they can call, who will help them to get abroad. But when we arrived, we realized that there's barely something we can do, because you can't serve food if there's no food, and you can't share information if it was not collected by anyone. And the place was really chaotic. Looks like the city didn't try to help, and the people didn't organize enough by that time. The people were arriving every half an hour, and there was a curfew overnight. So the people couldn't leave the railway station, and we couldn't leave it as well. And because of these huge amounts of people, and because of the place being so loud and dirty, and thousands of people and animals, and everyone was stressed and crying, and I had a panic attack, the worst I ever had. I realized I can't handle war, I can't be useful, I can't get through it, and I ended up hiding under the table in the corner of the railway station. Marta is a stronger sibling, so she managed to take me home, though there was a curfew and we were not allowed to leave. And by the morning, we realized that if we find these conditions too difficult for us to handle for even few hours, then how difficult it might be for the refugees themselves during these days and days they spent on the road. And we realized if we want something to be done better and more organized, and if we are looking for vegan options, and if we want it to be done better, we have to try and do it by ourselves. And what I was saying about the contacts and vegan community, that's when we realized that we are actually not alone. We have a lot of friends. I have a small experience of working at the restaurant, so we started calling everyone and trying to organize something. We were really ambitious, and that's what happened the next day.
Looks like we became owners of a vegan place in the center of the city overnight, because have you noticed that this place is the same that we were hanging out with our friends before the war, because it was going out of business, and we managed to hire their kitchen, hire their place, and we started to serve food next day after the idea appeared. Oksana was cooking and I was doing some management stuff and communications, and also a picture on the right. We were delivering food to the same railway station every day during a couple of weeks until the amount of people arriving reduced. And what is important about this place is it's not only about the food, it's about a safe space, because as Oksana mentioned that places where refugees are coming in Lviv are really chaotic, they are really crowded, and we were trying to create a safe space for them. I remember one woman, our guest, during first weeks of war, and she said that our place was the first place where she smiled after the war started. And it was very important for me that we were successful at creating a safe space for them.
One of the biggest problems we faced when we started serving food to the refugees is that in the chaos of first few weeks of full-scale war, we had a lot of issues with food supplies. One of the problems was that infrastructure was damaged a lot by the missile strikes themselves, and as well by the chaos, by a lot of people moving abroad and not enough workers on the factories and in the supermarkets, and the shelves were half empty during, I think, first month of war. And the products that were at the supermarkets, they were bought by people in a matter of few hours because no one knew what to expect, and people were really buying everything they could, all the food and all the hygiene products. And as well, we had food supplies issues because biggest vegan brands were located in that specific regions of Ukraine that suffered the most from Russian military aggression. The biggest one, Vegetus, their facilities were completely demolished by the missile strike. They had to shut down for some time and then relocate to Czech Republic. And one more brand is now under the occupation. So we had a lot of problems with food supplies, but we managed to get enough products and to feed everyone, and that's how.
We were lucky to build connections with vegans from all over the world thanks to attention Western media paid to our cause. And the first big article about us was the one in The Independent. And thanks to this, we built a lot of connections all over Europe with such big brands as Lush, Vegans, The Economist, and many, many others. And they delivered really big vans of vegan food to help us to serve vegan meals. And also, as Oksana said, that Ukrainian producers of vegan food were suffering from shellings. We were buying meat alternatives, plant-based meat in Poland for some time, but now we return to supporting local businesses as much as we can.
Our day at the kitchen started at 8 a.m. most of the days. I was cooking. Marta at the same time was shipping parcels with humanitarian aid to civilians and military. Then we were both volunteering as waitresses and serving food to the refugees. And after the working day at the kitchen was over, we were going home and doing the remaining work like online stuff, fundraising, collecting requests from people for the parcels, and doing interviews and online interviews. And it was really difficult, but we were really motivated and we didn't feel tired.
And which is also important that we had a big team of volunteers as well. We had a professional vegan chiefs, drivers, and we were not alone.
Yeah, the team was growing all the time, but as well was growing the amount of requests we received. And by the middle of April, we were serving from 500 to 700 of meals every day. And the place we rented back then, Vagarum restaurant, it was too small for such a big amount of people and that big amount of food. And we didn't have enough place to ship parcels. And it started to become a little bit chaotic. And we don't like when it's chaotic and when people are forced to stand in the queue. So when the things started growing really fast, we found much bigger place with separate room for dishwashing and few rooms for like collecting parcels and everything. And now for already a year, we are renting this much bigger place where much more people can sit at the same time. And now that's how it looks.
What's interesting that you can see same amount of people on both pictures, because there's still a lot of refugees in Lviv. And what's interesting about this place is that it is located in kind of office buildings, and many of office workers are going to, like they are visiting us and eating for donation, which is good and helps us to operate. But as well, I like this because I'd like refugees to be closer to locals and locals to be closer to refugees, because obviously sometimes people are not friendly. And I'm happy about these office people coming to eat for donation because they have a chance to know some refugees in person, which can help to build connection and for people to feel like home, I hope. And last summer, with help of Seth and with help of Seattle restaurant Chumin Tofu and the Well-Fed World, we bought a car, which helped us a lot. And thanks to that, we were allowed to ship more than 150 parcels a week, which is a big amount, but still not enough, as you will see later.
As I already mentioned, we are shipping humanitarian parcels to civilians and same to vegans in the armed forces, on the front lines, in the territorial defense. And we are being asked really often if someone needs it, if there are vegans in the armed forces, but of course they are. And a lot of our friends are now serving at the armed forces. And from what they told us, it's really difficult to stay well-fed and to stay healthy vegan. Of course, they don't want to stop being vegan. They don't want to switch to animal food, and they will feel bad both physically and mentally if they eat food they consider cruel and unethical. So in the first days of full-scale war, we noticed there's a problem with well-balanced vegan food in both territorial defense and on the front line, and we decided to fill this request as well. And for now, we shipped about 700 parcels to the armed forces that covered the needs of 2,500 of vegans in the armed forces. That's our protein bars we produced by ourselves at Lviv Vegan Kitchen. We wanted to come up with something, with some compact, small food, which will be high in calories and in protein, to help people stay well-fed and well-nourished. So we decided to make protein bars. They consist of dried fruits, nuts, and plant-based protein, plant protein. And we are mostly shipping them to vegans in the front line who have no possibility to eat twice or 3 times a day. I think they are really useful for them.
And we were saying at the beginning that Lviv is quite safe, but obviously it is safe only comparing to eastern or northern cities. Some of them are attacked every day. Lviv was attacked by missiles 32 times, and here are some of the most awful ones. The target of most attacks took place from last autumn was critical infrastructure. This is why our lives changed last autumn, and we have to get used to a new reality because we had access to power only during 8 hours a day. And this was challenging for a kitchen as well, and for any business and anyone in Ukraine, I guess. We set up an urgent fundraiser and collected money for power generator and for, I guess, a tank you see on the picture. And we managed to continue work during all winter without any delays, any stops. People were full and happy during all the winter, which I'm proud of, that even disposable dishes we used were organic, and we were not using plastic. And I'm very happy that we managed to go through this winter. And as we say in Ukraine, as we went through this winter, we are going to go through anything. So yeah, Vegan Kitchen survived.
That's one more branch of our work at the Lviv Vegan Kitchen. This winter, at the same time when power outages started, we decided to try and join to some humanitarian missions to the front lines and to less safe regions of Ukraine to deliver more food. Some of our friends were going to the frontline regions to deliver generators and medications for soldiers, and we joined by collecting requests for vegan food and delivering it as well. And one of our missions was fully organized by the Vegan Kitchen. It was Christmas mission to Kherson, which was liberated by Ukrainian armed forces last autumn. It was under the occupation for about half a year, and I thought once it was liberated, it's done and everyone is happy and life is calm and back to normal. But then I saw photographs and I realized that basically every building is either damaged or completely demolished, and people couldn't get a proper job when they were under the Russian occupation. They were oppressed badly. Their houses were murdered, and we decided to maybe make a little Christmas miracle and, I don't know, bring some positivity and visit them in person.
I think you've heard about Bakhmut. It is a city on the east of Ukraine which was attacked by, unsuccessfully attacked by Russians during a couple of months, and we organized and joined a couple of humanitarian missions there. And here's some funny trip moments. We were trying to heat pizza on the car engine, which was not successful, but at least it looks funny. And you can see some holiday Christmas lights, in the car. So we were trying to bring some joy to this city, which suffered so much. And we are moving to the most satisfying slides, I guess, about how many work was done.
As you see, for now, we shipped 2,000 humanitarian parcels to civilians. And as I already mentioned, we shipped about 700 parcels for the armed forces. But what sounds not that satisfying is that for now we collected about 50 to 60,000 of requests from people. Of course, not of these requests are from vegans, but as the time goes by and people are getting tired and organizations like ours, like food relief organizations, are going out of business, if you can call it that way. They stop working, and our kitchen is vegan, but it's like the only place where refugees can eat, basically. Back then, when the war started, we were one of the many, but now we are maybe the only place that left. And I don't know any other organization to ship that much of humanitarian parcels, so big part of requests are like, we are receiving much more of a request than we can cover, but with the help of people from all over the world, we have a chance to slowly but surely cover these needs and close these requests.
And what I like most about this place is that it is big enough to host events, and the pictures you can see is the social kitchen projects where refugees from Berdyansk, it's on the east of Ukraine, they are cooking food to serve for other refugees. And also some integrational events took place, and I'm as a vegan, I think every vegan should organize at least one meeting on their life. So I like organizing events so much, and I'm very happy about that. And I'm happy when refugees are feeling that they are welcomed in our city. I have some quotes from non-vegan refugees who tried vegan food in our place for the first time. And they were visiting like for during, I don't know, a couple of months or half a year. And here what they say: we are vegans now thanks to you. Or I couldn't imagine that vegan food can be so tasty, and I don't want to eat meat anymore. Our goal was, from the beginning, was not to educate people in veganism. We wanted to help existing vegans to stay vegan. But surprisingly, people are going vegan thanks to our kitchen, which is also impressive. Here you can see a QR code which leads to our website, and of course there's plenty of ways to help, not only donation. You can share information, and you can subscribe to our Patreon. Any help will be appreciated, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. Потім розберемося.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm sort of confused about one fundamental thing. You've told this tremendous story of all this effort that you've made and all the things that you've done in Ukraine. But you're standing here telling us in Portland, Oregon. Why are you in Portland, Oregon? Why are you in this church? How did this happen? And I'm part of the reason that I'm interested is that in my apartment building, the woman that runs a social service agency in the building is from Ukraine. Her parents are refugees from Ukraine, and I've met them all. There's also a woman I've met who is a receptionist at one of our hospitals I just met yesterday, who is from Ukraine. And I'm curious whether or not you're aware of whether or not there is any organized group of Ukrainians in Portland.
Mm-hmm. Our trip to US became real thanks to Seth. And we are going back to Ukraine at July 31. So we are here now for long, only to have a couple of talks. And скажешь щось? I'm afraid I didn't get the second part of your question.
I'm just curious whether or not you're aware, or maybe you're aware, sir, of whether or not there is a group in Portland coordinating their concerns as Ukrainians.
That's a good question, and maybe there's somebody in the audience that knows something more about that. Let me give you the mic.
First of all, Marta and Oksana, thank you for your presentation and all your work you're doing. I know you represent a lot of Ukrainians and the resilience of Ukrainians that are volunteering all over the country. But your work is particularly important because we all love food, and it's a wonderful way to connect, so thank you. So to answer your question, there is a large Ukrainian community here in Portland, and actually, yes, there is a Ukrainian foundation that you can look up, and they're actually having a public event, I think, in August. Yeah, we just heard about it. We happened to get involved ourselves, my wife and I, to help in Ukraine about a year ago. And we started what's called the Ukraine Refugee Support Service Learning Program and connected with some NGOs and asked, how can we help?
Wow.
And they said, interestingly enough, what a lot of refugees need is better conversational English to help them with their jobs. So we've been sharing with wonderful Ukrainian friends for the last year online, sharing conversational English. So we've come to know people very close. Kharkiv, particularly, my wife and I have quite a few friends now in Kharkiv, but I just want to thank you and what you're doing, and we support what Ukrainians are doing to win this war and to strengthen their democracy. And there are connections that you're helping create between the United States and Ukraine that I think will last and we can build on and be friends for a long time. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you both for a really great talk. And I just want to say, like, just your presentation, the way you had it was so cool to see all the pictures and everything and not like a ton of words. But I think I have one question I think a lot of us will have, which is what kind of food do you make in your kitchen, and what are your favorite dishes?
That's a great question. That's actually one of the 2 slides that we lost somewhere on our way from Ukraine. Our everyday menu, we are coming up with the menu depending on the products we have, on what is now more affordable on the market and what vegetables are like available during the season. And every day we have first meal, which is soup, like borscht or mushroom soup, pumpkin soup, lentil. And second dish is either some grains or pasta with vegetables, like vegetable stew or fresh salad. And of course, something high in protein. Either we serve tofu or we serve some legumes or soy meat or wheat-based meat. So yeah, that's it. And of course, drinks and bread.
Hi. First of all, I started crying when you were talking about how you had a panic attack and then literally the day after had started the kitchen. I just found that so moving that you could create that so quickly. And I'm so inspired. I think a question I have as an entrepreneur is logistically, like for me, if I'm going to start something, I have to think through like, how will I do this in a very like concrete way? Do I have like the budget and the resources to continue? And I'm just so curious if like in that one day, how did you figure out that you could get the space? I know it was the friend's restaurant that had closed, but there's still like rent to pay and to get the food. And like, I knew that, you both contributed yourselves and all your energy, but yeah, I just find that to be so inspiring. And I'm just so curious, like,
that's interesting because we were not building any long-term plans because everyone in Ukraine expecting war to be last at least the biggest a couple of weeks. We never thought that war will continue a year, and now we have a year and a half. So we have to build plans in the process. And it is always challenging because we are totally based on donations, and you never know how many donations you will have. And this is why we have to come up with ideas how to carry on. And yes, this is how it looks like now.
So, but to start, when you were like, we need the starting food and the starting space and stuff, how did you guys do that?
Actually, I have no idea how we succeed to make it because it was just a matter of less than a day and a night, less than 24 hours. I was sure we will not get enough money to be able to pay for this plan, but we were really ambitious, and I don't know, we didn't thought what are we going to do if it's time to pay for rent and we will have no money. I don't know, it was too risky maybe, but we just decided to give it a try. And I don't know, I have no idea how we succeed to collect enough donations to pay for the rent on the very first month.
I hope Seth will teach us to think strategically and to build long-term plans.
Yeah, it sounds like that. There's that Joseph Campbell quote where he says that like where there's a wall for everyone else, there's a door for you. And it sounds like you had decided, and then it all happened.
And also important thing I forgot to mention during the talk that we need $5,000 per week to operate. And this is per month. I'm sorry. $5,000 US per month to operate to feed at least 150 people a day vegan. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to let everyone in the room know, and you too, also that there is free vegan food here in Portland.
Wow.
And there's a group called Food Not Bombs that operates here. The Food Not Bombs started about 40 years ago, and it came out of the anti-nuclear movement back east, and now it's an international organization. So I participate with a whole bunch of vegan people here in Portland, and on Wednesdays and Saturdays, at 5 p.m. at Buckman Elementary School in the Southeast on Stark and 16th, we give away donated produce, tofu, bread, hummus, and other foods that are given to us. And then on Saturdays, we have a community vegan potluck. Everyone's welcome. We always need donations of food, so 5 o'clock Wednesdays and Saturdays at Buckman Elementary School in the Southeast. And Food Not Bombs has a Facebook page, and y'all are welcome to come help. And then I'm just personally curious if your airport is open or if you had to cross the border to fly out.
Our airports are not working at the time, so we had to go by the bus to the Warsaw, and then we had a flight to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam to here to Portland. So it took 58 hours altogether.
And also it's nice to hear from you about Food Not Bombs, because I was organizing some Food Not Bombs in 2017, I guess. And it's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. I have a question as to whether or not your vegan food you serve in is gluten-free.
I think we have some gluten-free options for people who are fulfilling our online forms, and we are shipping fully gluten-free parcels for them. We are purchasing pasta, not gluten-free, and gluten-free sweets for them. But on the kitchen, for example, we are posting our menu in our channel every day, and people know what food consists of, and they will not get allergy attack or something. So yeah, it's not fully non-gluten, but I think that everyone can find something for them.
First meal is usually gluten-free.
Yeah, a soup is usually gluten-free. Yeah, it's cream soup. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed one of the signs said heart, and I know that serving is a way to take care of your heart, but how are you also taking care of yourselves amidst what you're doing? How are you doing? What are you doing for yourselves?
Interesting question.
We are trying to not forget to have some rest and some time for ourselves, because it's difficult when you are doing some crisis activism, because it's like the crisis in the process and a lot of people need help. And sometimes when you think about going to the great outdoors for a few days to refresh your head, and you think how a lot of work you could do in these few days, but we have to remember that we have to take care of ourselves, and we either go out of town for a day or two, or we are just sitting with our cats and playing video games, reading some books to distract from the tragedies happening every day. We are trying to spend time with friends and cook something, eat something, like simple joys of this life.
That was a wonderful talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So good to see you. I was wondering about opportunities to possibly grow the vegan movement, given that so many farms and fields are being destroyed, and yet there's still food being grown to feed animals that people then are going to eat, whereas more of the food could be grown just to feed the people who need food in this terrible time during the war.
And yeah, we were talking about it recently, that hopefully at least, I mean, it's really bad that food is still being grown to feed animals and then slaughter them, and I mean, it's not rational, and basically we don't have enough land and water on this earth for this food system. And I mean, maybe there's nothing we can do about it at the moment because it's so difficult. It's the food system people are used to, and it's being promoted, and it's being supported by the government itself. But hopefully, at least this much of a crisis and this much of atrocities and everything, and how it affected whole like global economics, maybe it will at least bring enough attention, and it will cause discussion too big to ignore, because that's what vegan activists and climate change activists are talking about all the time, about wiser use of resources. And maybe at least during the crisis, people will realize that it's really not rational and we can't keep going this way.
I had just a quick question about the supply chain for you now. Every day that you're working still, is that settled down, or is there still some challenges and you're going into the winter where there's less fresh vegetables? So,
thank you. No, it looks like it settled down by now. We are going to a local market once a week to buy some vegetables and fruits, and also to a big grocery store once a week. And we often get donations from locals. They donate both products and some equipment. So we have we have a possibility to cook something new every day. And thanks God, by now we can be sure that tomorrow we will have enough resources to cook. Yeah.
I'd say for now supply chain is it's not really stable, but it's much better than during first half a year of full-scale war. But it can change any moment because, for example, what happened last month to the Kakhovka Dam, it will affect a lot of people, and it's the region where most of agriculture is happening in Ukraine, and the prices can change in a matter of few days or a matter of few weeks. It depends on the missile strikes, it depends on the infrastructure. So for now, it's you can call it stable if you are comparing it to the beginning of full-scale war, but it's like you have to try and prepare for whatever.
I remember you mentioned that blowing up of the Kakhovka Dam was very, it made you feel like you did the first week of the war. And could you talk a little bit about that event?
Kakhovka Dam is the huge water reservoir that is located on the Dnipro River. It's the biggest river of Ukraine, and a bit higher by the river or up by the river, there's Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which is its facilities are cooled by this water, by this huge amount of water, and the city of Nova Kakhovka has been under the occupation since March of 2022, and on June 6, Russians blew it up. It was completely demolished, and it caused a flood that big that at least 12,000 of people had to relocate because their houses were like completely flooded. You could see only the roofs of the buildings, and much more people had to relocate because of the risks it caused and because of the risks around Zaporizhia nuclear plant. And now Russians are threatening this power plant every week, and sometimes it's really terrifying. I'm trying not to think about it really much, but it's terrifying. And a lot of people relocated to Lviv, and we were thinking about maybe if we are now serving only 100 or 150 of meals a day, maybe there's much less need in Lviv vegan kitchen. Maybe in some time we will be able to go out of business, but then this Kakhovka Dam situation happened, and the amount of meals we are serving each day, it became twice as big as the months before. So yeah, it taught us how we can, how we never know what to expect.
Thank you very much for your talk. I enjoyed it, hearing about it. I guess my question is, you're in, what town are you in? You're doing your work?
Lviv, it's the west of Ukraine.
So is life going on more or less as usual? I mean, are the kids going to school? Are the stores open? Are buses running? I just kind of wanted to get a sense. And are you afraid, every day?
Yeah, life goes on, and life in Western cities looks just like before the war, except the air raids. But in the rest of Ukraine, the closer are the city to a front line, the more dangerous is it, because artillery cannot reach Lviv. They can reach us and other Western cities only with these super expensive missiles. But the cities are closer to Russia, they are under the bigger danger. And from the first glance, looks like life is going on, but we have a curfew, for example. We have air raid sirens, sometimes almost every day. But yes, we are trying to work, and also government as well is trying to inspire people to get back to work, to help our army, to donate, to organize some activities, to volunteer. This is why we have to try to continue our ordinary life, to be more useful and to win this war.
Just wanted to point out that Lviv is about the same size as Portland. I think it has 750,000 people, and we have maybe 650 here, so very similar.
Thank you so much for coming and telling us your story. You know, sitting here in Portland, where we were so far from war, it's really moving to hear you operating under that condition. You know, when buildings are being bombed and people's lives are threatened. Your food line, you don't know what you can serve because you don't know what food is available. It's really hard for us to imagine being out of our comfort zone and hear the story. But so thank you so much for bringing your story here. And I come from Taiwan,
Wow.
which China wants to take. And so I look at Ukraine, I think, oh my God, all the comforts in Taiwan can be gone in a moment if China decides, it wants to take over Taiwan. So it's very scary to look at what's happening in your country.
But we got some help from Taiwan, I guess twice. It was very nice from them. They delivered some vegan food to us. Just imagine a distance between Ukraine and Taiwan, but they managed somehow.
Hi, you are amazing. I'm wondering if you have a vision for what the work you're doing now, if it's possible to think about the future. What is your vision for when the war is over?
Yeah, we are thinking about it a lot. We don't want to just shut the kitchen down once the war is over, because we collected that much of experience and connections and everything, and we want to at least be able to give back to the world at least as much as the world gave to us, and we want to keep working. And maybe we were thinking about different ways to keep going after the war is over, maybe some social entrepreneurship, maybe keep doing the same work, but for example, homeless people or some other, I don't know, some other vulnerable groups. Yeah, but we are not going to shut down, of course. We are going to keep working, and we will come up with something, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have two questions. The first one is, in the United States, we would always turn to the government to give us money after some kind of disaster, that kind of thing. In Ukraine, now that there are so few food resources for refugees, do you get any kind of money or support from the Ukrainian government? And then secondly, I'm curious about the staff that you've had in your kitchen for the last year and a half. Is it paid staff, volunteers, or a mixture? Thank you.
About funding, I guess in Ukraine we'll at first ask USAID or other big fund for help than state, because state and government, they have their own programs. And most of granting programs they propose, they are not humanitarian. They are about integration of refugees to a local community, which is quite different of what we do. And about the second one, we were fully volunteer-based during the first year. This winter, we switched to paid work because conditions were really harsh. It was hard to do your daily stuff, and because of this power outages. And volunteers are burning out usually very fast, and we had to be sure that we will have someone to open the doors tomorrow. And this is why we switched to paid work, yes.
Was wondering, in your travels, are you sponsored by folks like the church, or do you have to do that yourself?
We are sponsored by Seth. Thank you.
There's one last point that I think needs to be made. It's probably obvious to everybody, but I think it's important to be made explicit. There's lots of reasons, obviously, that this needs to be done. and to continue after the war, etc. But it's also a matter of cold-blooded military logistics. There's a Russian army that's killing people, maiming people, destroying people's homes, destroying dams. All of that's happening. But a well-fed Ukrainian population can support the army, and a well-fed Ukrainian army can beat a Russian army that's having increasing problems providing food to its own troops. So this is also about saving lives and winning this freaking war.
You are so
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming today, and I want to thank one more time Marta and Oksana. And yep, they do need money, and if you want to donate, there's cards. Roz has cards at the door, and they all have where QR code and where you can donate, and it's really a pleasure. The donations, by the way, are run through Well-Fed World, which is a 501c3, so it's a tax-deductible donation for you. And they just, Well-Fed World emailed me last night and said there's a lot of action now in the Lviv thing, so it's a very good thing. And if you can give, it's a really appreciated donation, because they are doing such great work, and we just really love hearing their story and love these two amazing women and what they've created and what they continue to persevere and do day in and day out. It's, like I said, I think one of the great stories, period, in the world, and certainly a great vegan story too. So thank you so much.
For the questions. Ласкаві запитання. Thank you. Так мило. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your attention.